about motherhood. 1 minute, you're mom of the year.
I love you, Mommy.
Then the next, not so much. From bath time to bullying, from potty training to puberty, parenting is full of challenges. But one thing is for certain, you are not alone. Welcome to Modern Mom Probs. I'm your host, author, mother, parenting expert, Tara Clark. Join me while we tackle today's modern mom problems. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
So excited to be here.
I'm so excited for you to be here. Both of you are absolute powerhouses, like just incredible. You should be so proud of all of the things that you have accomplished. So I'm going to start with Raena first. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Sure. So I'm Raena. I'm a mom of 3. I am a reluctant resident of Florida and a native. My kids are 8, 7, and 2, and they're all going to be, the oldest will be 9 in November, and my baby will be 3 in October. I am a co-founder of Chamber of Mothers. I am a founder of the Working Momtras, a place where I write about being a mom who also works. And then I work in HR.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You have a busy fall coming up.
Yeah. Yes.
With all the birthdays. I get it because my son's birthday is in November too. And, you know, once school starts, it's Halloween and Thanksgiving and all those things like boom, 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 birthdays.
The fall is just like the time, but Erin and I are both Libra. So it's our season too. It's coming.
Oh, there you go. I like it. Libra season's a good season. So Erin, now that we know your season, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a Libra. I like long walks on the beach. I'm also a mom of 3, and my kids are 12, 9, and 6. I'm an attorney. I still maintain a very small intellectual property practice that I actually rejuvenated during COVID because I found so many moms were wanting to reinvent themselves and become business owners and needed some support around trademark and just ownership of their rights. I'm serving as the CEO of Chamber of Mothers. I'm a co-founder with Raena. We're both day one co-founders. Before starting Chamber of Mothers, I worked really at the intersection of entertainment, social good, tech, and law. And so I spent a lot of my career in Los Angeles and really tried to leverage everything that I had learned from my legal background and working with talent and working with artists for good. And so when I became a mom, I really was shocked that, and this was in 2012, I was shocked that there was no even conversation about a woman's experience and how she changes as she journeys into and through motherhood. I found that there was a lot of resourcing and support around pregnancy, even so much talk about how are you going to give birth and opinions about that. And then people say there's no manual. Well, there actually are a lot of manuals for baby care and pediatrics, but there is really nothing, especially then, there was nothing to support this massive revolution, which we now call matrescence, that a woman goes through where your relationships, your body, your mind, your ambition, everything is rattled. Like suddenly all at once. It's the biggest change that any species goes through at any period in time. And it's radically unsupported. And much like we're learning the same with menopause and perimenopause, right? And so this notion just sat with me that I wanted to be some part of a solution around that. I wanted to use whatever I could of my background and my knowledge and my concern to create more justice around a woman's experience of motherhood. And that started out as me founding Totem, which means whole in Latin, and creating that community. And back in the day, we sold a lactation cookie because I needed that to just feed myself when I went right back to work after having a baby. But really through the pandemic, just seeing that moms were hurting terribly. And there was so much journalistic ink spilled about the plight of the American mom and mothers being the social safety net of this entire country. And there was sort of this moment of, okay, so it's been talked about. Is anybody going to really do anything about it? Will anything change? Or is this just going to turn into moms are big complainers, right? And so I was watching that happen. In the meantime, was contacted by the folks at Paid Leave US, and was asked to join a White House briefing about the American Families Plan, and really learned that we were very, very close to finally having a federal paid family medical leave program for everyone, and very close to having accessible, affordable childcare. And I got so excited. The same thing was happening for all of us who are now co-founders of Chamber of Mothers. And so I share that when I share my background, because my sense, my experience is that the work that we're doing at Chamber of Mothers is absolutely required. Moms will continue to suffer and will continue to feel like it's somehow their fault that they're suffering until our law and policy changes. Full stop.
Full stop. Absolutely. There's so many things that I love that you were saying in there, but to go back to what you were saying is that when you had your son in 2012, I had my son in 2012, and I distinctly remember there was not enough information about all of the things, the transition. Sure, there was stuff about, like you said, like giving birth or breastfeeding, that kind of stuff. But we have come so far on social media and online with having platforms where people can speak about these experiences. Agreed. And I'm so grateful for people like the two of you and your other co-founders to give light to these things, right? And that's why I do what I do too, right? Like I'm going to lump myself into that as well. As like, I started this account in 2016 because I didn't think that people were speaking about the modern mom problems in the same way, right? I mean, this account sort of started as a more lighthearted first world problems things, but as it evolved to talking about things that are legitimate modern mom problems. And here we are talking about those things today. And so thank you for coming on and talking about that. And so how did Chamber of Mothers start? It's one of those things where you mentioned it, Erin, is that many times we get the idea that like, oh, moms are just complaining, like, oh, you're just complaining about these modern mom problems, but you don't have it as bad as this group or that generation or different things. It's like, yes, and we're here now in 2024. So we need to do what we can to fix what we have going on here for the next generation of mothers.
Absolutely.
Right? And so how did you take it from an idea and just people sort of just talking about, what would be great if we weren't struggling like this, to we need to work with Washington, D.C. to enact policies? How did that come about?
Yeah, I can start us off, Erin. So I think everybody came to this in a little bit of a different way. And I also often say that this is my villain origin story as well. And I find it so funny that women will often say, oh, it's a villain origin story, but really you're just like, hell no, we won't go. Like we're enacting a boundary and standing up for ourselves and somehow we're a villain.
It's crazy.
I was on leave with my third kid, and it was the first leave that I had paid leave for. I had it through my employer. And the thing that was keeping me from feeling mom guilt was that Build Back Better was a thing, and in it was this paid leave provision. And so I thought, everybody is going to have access to this. I feel so proud to be an American that we are finally going to get it right. And then I watched it go from 12 weeks to 4 weeks to 0 weeks, and something snapped in me. My baby was only a few weeks old, but I was on the artist formerly known as Twitter, and I'm seeing reporters from PBS NewsHour ask for people's thoughts on this. What does it mean to them? So I'm in this room, my baby's on the floor in one of those little DocuTalk things, and I'm just like typing away, like anybody who would, listen to me. And at the same time, other mothers on the internet were also getting righteously rageful about what was going on. And so I'm observing all of this, seeing like, oh, what's next? What's about to happen? And so I saw one of our co-founders, Lauren Smith Brody, was saying, look, we don't know if it's a union, we don't know if it's a strike, we don't know what it is, but we want to come together and do something. And little old me was like, whatever it is, I want to be involved. And so, Erin, I think this is a great part for you to pick up in as somebody who was, a huge part of architecting this, to jump in and get into the logistics of how we made this happen.
Of course. Yeah, I love that. And I love when you share that, Raena, because it's true. All of us who co-founded this were having that moment at the same time. And it's really rather magical. I mean, we all have our story. I remember standing in my laundry room, talking to Daphne Delvaux, who's another co-founder. She goes by the Mom Attorney online, and she has a ton of loyal followers. And she said to me, well, what most people don't realize is that the Chamber of Commerce is the #1 blocker of paid family and medical leave. And where's the Chamber of Mothers? What if we were to come together like the AARP, like the Chamber of Commerce, look at even the NRA, right? There are all these groups where there's a shared affiliation and there's strength in numbers and strength in voice and strength in vote. And they come together and they either block or push forward what they need. Why is that not happening with moms? And so we looked around and we realized, we've got Raena, we've got Lauren, we have Cassie, we have Kelsey, we have all these people with these big followings of moms. What if we were to go out and get really loud together and be this groundswell, all saying the same thing? Because one day our vision is that the 85 million some moms in this country with their 11 trillion in annual spending power and controlling 85% of the household spending coffers, and by 2028 being the most powerful, influential economic force in this country. What if we were to start to truly come together and vote and spend and speak up about our interests? And there was a moment where, we went to our communities and we asked about, and I wanted to pick up on this moment too, when you talked about sort of champagne problems and, feeling like, is this sort of like a big enough problem to take on? Well, we went to our communities and we're asking things like, tell us about your experience with lack of paid family medical leave. Tell us about your experience with inaccessible, unaffordable, quality childcare. And the two stories that I tell a lot, because I think they're really important for everybody to keep in mind, and they really gave rise to the origin of our work, are #1, somebody in Raena's community shared that she had to take out a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, on her home in order to afford childcare. We now know that in almost every state, people pay more for childcare than they do for rent. There was a mom in our co-founder, Alexis Broad Cutler. She runs Not Safe for Mom group. A mom in her community said, I was back to work at 2 weeks postpartum, and we know that that's 1 in every 4 moms in this country. I was back at work at 2 weeks postpartum, standing on a fulfillment floor, picking and packing orders for other people. There was blood seeping through my jeans, milk coming through my top. And so that gave rise to, when we all came together on social media, our first rallying cry was, we won't build back bleeding. And it caught fire. So in a day, we had 10,000 followers. We were covered by parents and self, and all of that was organic. And we had folks from a lot of the longstanding advocacy groups saying to us, wow, you all reached this, they called it the everyday consumer mother, in 48 hours in a way that we've been looking to for decades. And it was really at that moment that we said, this can't just be a social media moment. We need to stand something real up. And what does that look like? And that's where we really anchored into our 3 pillars. That #1, this is all about maternal health. Truly, this is all about standing up sturdy, thriving, healthy American mothers. And so we looked at the maternal mortality rates and how they're 3 times higher for Black women. And it's absolutely unacceptable. It's a national emergency. It's not talked about enough. And paid family medical leave and accessible, affordable childcare are very much a part of that, right? I mean, you've got a large number of those mothers who are part of the maternal mortality crisis who are passing away in the first 43 days postpartum. So, and you look at the lack of home visits, the lack of paid leave, the lack of support, it's all one and the same. So we decided these are our three pillars: maternal health, childcare, and paid leave. And we are going to do this also in three ways. We are going to lobby on Washington. We are going to stand up local chapters across this country, because moms, while we all share these same concerns, we are not a monolith. We need more stories from moms across the country and to know what the real solutions are. And number three, our team is great at creative campaigns. And so we're going to continue to have these narrative shift campaigns be a part of the way in which we work. So we started it with a fiscal sponsorship, and then we stood up a 501c3, and we're very much here to stay.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. It is so needed. So needed. But I don't have to be the one to tell you that. You know that. You know that by the tens of thousands of people that are supporting you, hundreds of thousands of people that are supporting you in this mission. It's simply incredible. What is your main goal? Like, what is your perfect outcome for the work that you're doing right now, Raena?
That's a great question. And I think this is a throwback to our original mission statement, uniting mothers as advocates to create a better America, and that we want to also bestow to future generations. I do not want my kids having to go through what I have gone through. I want them to be able to decide whether or not to expand their family because they want to, not because the decision is made for them, because they cannot imagine a world in which they can afford childcare. They cannot imagine a world in which they have, don't have access to paid leave. Those are the things that I'm hearing from my community that I know are going to just continue to be issues for people. And that's really one of the things that motivates me and drives me. And, what I want to see is I want my kids to inherit an America that treats them with the respect and dignity that they deserve and honors their capacity to create a family or not.
Yeah. It comes down to choice. Speaking of choice, when my son was born, or when I was pregnant with my son, I was working at Nickelodeon, and I loved that job. I had been there for 5 years. It was an incredible community of people, the most talented people you could imagine. It was part of Viacom at that time, but they recently went through a whole new overhaul with Paramount. That's a different story altogether. So when I was pregnant with Jack, I worked at Nickelodeon, and I fully thought that I was going to return to work and continue there. And then when he was born, I looked at the price of childcare and decided to stay home with him full time because for two reasons. One, I wanted to have a more flexible schedule, and my boss said, no, it's all or nothing. Remote work didn't really exist in 2012. So it was, you're coming in 5 days a week or you're not coming in at all. And so I chose not to come in at all. But the finances of that really played into it, because in New York City, we were living in New York City at the time, if childcare was $2,500, it wasn't making, and it actually may have been more than that. I don't really remember now, but I'm going to use that as an amount. It wasn't making sense for me to go to work each day. And I happened to be in a store. It was around the same time, and it felt very sadly validating. I had overheard another mom say to a friend, and they were both there with strollers. And we always used to love to go to CVS just to walk around and give us something to do. And I was there with my son doing the same thing. And the mom said to her friend, well, I couldn't go back to work because it just simply didn't make sense financially for me because I can't pay the daycare. And that was my experience. I overheard these other two women talking about that as their experience. And I'm sure that is the case across the board. And so what does that mean for mothers who temporarily give up a career that they love, that made them feel something other than, just a mom. And I'm using that in quotes, right? Like that you have so much reward, both financially and emotionally and physically and spiritually and all those things that you could get from a career that you love, to have to give that up because you simply can't afford to work.
This one gets me really hot and bothered. I'll tell you, Tara, because I think there's a big cultural lie underneath that, which is that childcare expenses are on the mom. First of all, I hear so many moms say that, and I say that without judgment because I made that same decision for that same reason. And I looked at, I was offered to come back. I was working at Indiegogo at the time. I had been the fourth employee there. I took us through a Series A and Series B, and we had hundreds of employees. And my CEO called me during my time off and said, and my time off, look, another cultural lie.
See? Oh, I caught you. I caught you.
Yes. They're through everything, and we have to work together to snuff them out. So I was on my California paid leave, and he called me and said, I really want you to come back as our chief revenue officer. And I was looking at that same query of, well, how do I juggle all of this, first of all? And how do I show up totally whole and sturdy and ready to be a CRO and everything that entails, and maintain a healthy breastfeeding relationship with my baby and get his sleep on track and all of this. And also, we were looking at the finances, though, of what it would look like if we had a full-time nanny and if I left. And I really, every bit of it, the work of it, like that I just mentioned, and the cost of it, I only put in my silo. I didn't spread that across my husband and me. And I have a partner, and I know not everybody does have a partner, but when you do have a partner, you've got to look at the cost of childcare, at the cost of, even just the work of childcare as being spread across both parents. And we don't do that enough, number one. Number two, you're absolutely right that so many mothers make that decision. And I love how you talk not just about not earning income, but there's this not only sort of dignity piece to no longer earning income, but the word that I think about a lot is contribution. We grow up, we go through, many of us, like at least 3 decades before we have children, and we've learned a lot, experienced a lot. We have so much to offer. When we are pushed out of the workforce and we are then struggling just to keep up, the world is losing our contributions to art, to science, to law, to medicine, to the workplace, all of it. And so it's a very real problem. And when we lobby in Washington, we have different one sheets for Republican offices and Democratic offices, because we know that Republican offices, by and large, are more fiscally conservative. So we truly have taken what is the impact on the GDP when you lose a mom's life, when you lose a mom's contribution to the workforce. We know that in every state, there are industries that are not able to flourish because they can't provide childcare. One was we talked to a Republican senator in West Virginia that was there was a steel plant coming in, and we know we've lost a lot of that business to Asia. I grew up in a steel mill town. They were really excited about the steel business, but they cannot stand it up without quality, affordable childcare. And so this is everyone's problem. It's an economic problem. And it's something that we've had to do a lot of work around language and listening, and just making sure that when we're talking about these issues, we are really talking about how they impact everybody. Yes, mothers, and that's where our heart is and our core. But modern mom problems are everybody's problem in America.
Wow, I'm going to take that catchphrase and use that for that. That was the sound bite right there, Erin. No, true. But I also want to hear what Raena has to say about this too.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo everything Erin says. And also, I think a lot about the poet Kate Baer, and a writer. She said that nothing she does would be possible without childcare. And so I think about all of the art that she's created, all of the words that make people feel, women and moms feel seen. those would not exist if we didn't have childcare. And then you multiply that by all of the contributions that we don't get to see because of a lack of access to childcare. And also this reframing of, no, we don't need to pay for childcare. You just need to stay home with your babies. And I think that should be a choice that people are able to make and not be forced into. Because truly what we have right now is not, most mothers who choose to stay at home are doing so because of economic reasons. It's not a choice. It's not, their hand was forced a little bit. And so I just think about what are we robbing our society of when we don't allow mothers to show up as their whole selves in whatever form that might be.
Mm-hmm. You can't hear me. I'm snapping for you. Give the audio play by play. Get those snaps in there. Get the snaps in there.
And I also want to add, this is why we do the work that we do at Chamber of Mothers, is that we are really invested in living in an America where moms feel like these are not just mom problems. These are not small things. The little things are the big things. These are microcosms of a bigger systemic institutional issue that we often individualize and internalize as our own fault when these are systemic and institutional failures.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Let's talk about some examples of other countries that are doing it right. Can you give me some insight onto a country that you're like, you know what, this is what we're trying to model?
I mean, this is everybody's example is Scandinavian countries. They get it right. Childcare, paid leave for both parents, investments. And if you have a grandparent that is helping to take care of a child, the government is subsidizing that because it is work. Care work is work. It is, to me, a deep value for care work as work and an honoring of that, and installing it into their country's systems so that it's normal. It's just absolutely normal. When people visit my page or visit Chamber of Mothers from another country, they're absolutely appalled and horrified that these are the types of things that we are like, don't have, that we are fighting for and do not have.
Yeah. Two things I'd say too is that, like, honestly, every other country but the micro islands has paid family medical leave at the federal level. So you can really like throw a dart and hit a country that's doing it better than we are, honest to goodness. And it's a shame. And I love the Scandinavia pick. I remember during COVID, one of my friends who actually did work with me at Indiegogo had moved to Sweden, and I had her come on in an Instagram Live. And one of the examples that she gave me about mothering over there is that I thought was really beautiful and I hadn't heard of before, is that while you're pregnant, the government like helps make you aware of other pregnant women in your neighborhood so that you can begin to build community while you're pregnant, so that you have a support network postpartum. And they're that, concerned. There's that much compassion. And I saw something, I follow a lot of different accounts purposely on Instagram because I don't want to be in an echo chamber, and I live in the South. And so there's a lot of different views here. And I saw this Instagram reel about how every communist country where things went really badly, it all started with quote unquote compassion. And it started about being concerned about rights, right? And I had so many issues with it. But one thing that was very scary to me, because it's a very real narrative that we need to be afraid of becoming like North Korea. And the thing is, like, it's just such a joke because everywhere else is doing this, everywhere else. I mean, just to the north of us in Canada, folks are making this work. And it doesn't have to mean that you make almost no money and, you take home very little pay because of taxes. It really comes down to one word, which is priorities. Where are our priorities? Are our priorities in the defense and that is a massive issue for me. When you really look at the spending, it's not that one side of the aisle is spending more, or they basically are spending the same. It really comes down to priorities. And I have found too, just anecdotally, from moms that live and work in places where they have very robust paid leave programs, moms are ready to go back to work. Moms are ready to contribute. They're eager because they've had time to feed their babies however works best for them, to figure that out, to have those choices made. They've had time to get their children on a sleep schedule. There has been a sense that both partners in a two-partner household should be engaged in care. And so they're sturdy and they're like, you know what? I'm good. I'm excited to go back. I'm excited to contribute again. My best friend who's in Canada, she was at like 9 months of an 18-month program. And she said, I'm starting to get crazy. Like, I need to channel this energy back into the workplace because I'm starting to become like this crazy organizer at home. I need to channel all this contribution into the right place. So yeah, pretty much everywhere else has it figured out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a lot. It's a lot. But this year is an election year. So let's talk about that. What are you working on for the election this year?
Take it, Raena.
So our campaign is Vote Like a Mother, and Vote Like a Mother is a voter education campaign. And we are connecting moms through our partnership with the SCIM and other partners to help and I am a voter, to help them understand first of all, what's your status? Are you registered to vote? Are you in a state that might have purged you from the rolls and you had no idea?
That's a thing?
That's a thing. It's happening in Texas. It's happening in Georgia. This is a real thing of the voter rolls getting purged and people are unaware that they are no longer registered to vote in their state. And so this is why this campaign is so important. It's not only, yes, if you've never registered to vote, here's the resources to get you registered, but it's also what's your status. And then, when you keep pulling the thread, it's not only that, it's where do your elected officials stand on paid leave, on maternal health, on affordable and accessible or universal childcare. These are all things that it is safe and perfectly okay for mothers and people who support mothers in this country to vote for candidates who have their interest in mind and vote according to their own interests, and advocate for those types of things. And, we're just really excited that this is taking off. I'm wearing my Vote Like a Mother shirt today.
Oh, that's so cute. I want one.
We have those on our Chamber of Mothers website. But this Vote Like a Mother is really a rallying cry. It is vote like a mother for the things you believe in. Vote like a mother for climate change, for childcare, for paid leave, for, we are on the heels of yet another senseless gun violence incident in Georgia. Vote like a mother for gun control. Vote like a mother for reproductive freedom and IVF. These are all things that are not only absolutely valid concerns, but we've been taught, and I think women, especially in this country, have been taught that these are nice to haves. We don't really know what to do about it. How do we pay for it? And we're really putting the power back in the hands of mothers to say, we're holding you accountable. That's your job to figure it out. We're telling you what we want in this country, and it's your job to execute.
Yeah, it's a long time coming.
100%. And just specific actions that moms listening to this can take. Pull over if you're driving, but you can right now, you can text mother to 26797. So bring up 26797, type in mother, and you will find out your status. To Raena's point, you will register to vote. You'll get updates on your polling place, on your elections, all of it. And then the second tool that we created for moms, because we realized that moms, thanks to the lack of these support systems, are the most time poor Americans. I'll just go ahead and say it. We wanted to make something that would equip mothers to get educated on the issues, on the candidates quickly and in one place. And so we partnered with Ballot Ready and I Am a Voter and Bobby to create a website, a voter education site, where you can go, you can right now put in Tara Clark and then your zip code, and you will see not only the presidential candidates and where they stand, but every single person on your ballot, every ballot measure. You'll be able to search by the issues that you're most concerned about. You see pictures of folks and their educational backgrounds and their service backgrounds, and you click and build your ballot. It's like, which one do you want to select? Click here, click on the person's face, and it builds your ballot for you. And then you can print it out or email it to yourself and be done. Because what we learned through our local chapters is that moms were either sitting out the vote or voting along with their partners because they have such a high bar for their own performance and the way that they show up, that if they didn't go in sort of quote unquote perfectly educated about it, they wanted to sit it out, or they would just ask their partner how they were voting on the way to the polling place. And so we wanted to return this sense of agency, which comes from feeling prepared, to moms, and make it super easy. So we want to make sure, Tara, you have the link to our education site, and that everybody will text 26797 and text the word mother to 26797 and quickly find out your status and get registered.
Wow, Erin, that was so easy. You laid it out. I feel like the major complaint I always hear from mothers in general is like, we have so many things on our plate right now. Please don't add anything more. Or if you do, just make it easy. 100%. Just make it easy. Don't make me have to dig. Don't make me have to really take up much more time. And this is something that's so important, that the fact that you say, okay, it's all laid out. You have 5 minutes to scroll through your phone. Then you also have 5 minutes to go to this website to get information on the facts, on the candidates, who's running, what do they believe? What are they, God, I totally lost my train of thought there. What do they stand for? Totally. Exactly. Thank you.
I'm with you. We made a reel. I just did it the other night because I was so excited that this tool launched, because it's such an answer, as you said, to what moms need. I just really did a screen share of me going through the process and a voiceover of how it works, and made it so easy. And we've pinned that to the top of our Instagram, and we'll share the link straight to the site with everybody, because we want to make it easy. We had been saying to moms, after the kids go to sleep, go on your state's voting website and download the sample ballot. And we were like, we can make this even easier, and we can give information. And by the way, Ballot Ready has 100 researchers working every single day to update where candidates stand on these issues. And then it's fed through this resource. So we're making it as easy as we possibly can, because we know moms have no time.
Yeah. That's always the long and the short of it, is moms are just like, I am time poor. Yeah. I cannot put any more time into this, but this is so important. Thank you for walking me through that, and thank you for creating that just in general. Just thank you that exists. I am going to ask you both a question that I ask all of my guests, and I'm so curious to hear what your answers are going to be, because I think I have an idea, but sometimes people surprise me, so I don't know. I'm going to start with Raena on this one. What do you think is the biggest modern mom problem right now?
This is such a great question. I think the biggest mom problem, and I alluded to this earlier, is that women and moms in this country especially are socialized to internalize and individualize institutional and systemic failures. Wow, and in other words, it's a scam. It is a scam. Mom guilt is a scam. As Erin was talking about earlier, the fact that we only tie the cost of childcare to a woman's salary, total scam. These are all scams that are designed to rob women and mothers of their agency and their personhood. Yeah. And it robs our country and the world and our families of seeing our contributions and our gifts.
Beautifully said. Absolutely beautifully said.
She should drop the mic on that one, but I will just say that I think the biggest modern mom problem is connected to turning the phrase moms can have it all into moms should and must do it all. I find that we are just incredibly overburdened. I mean, just doing it all, never having a second to breathe, being disconnected to our essence. And then that just really impacts everything. It impacts the way that we parent. It impacts the friends that we are, to our other friends. It impacts the way we show up at work. It impacts how we show up to our partners. It impacts our lifespan. It impacts, our disease state, all of it. We really are living in this culture that moms must do it all and must do it all looking good and being thin and outliving the previous generation. It's just so weighty. And we are really trying, as Raena said, to shatter all of the myths and the scams. And we believe that the institutional change that we're fighting for on the federal and state levels will lead to cultural change. And so that's why we're in this fight.
Keep fighting the fight. Ladies, tell everyone where we could find you online.
You can find us at chamberofmothers.com. So www.chamberofmothers.com. Please follow us on Instagram. It's just simply at Chamber of Mothers. And you'll find a link to join our newsletter when you go to our website. And there's a lot of great information there.
Awesome. Everybody go follow them, go to the website and go to 26797, type in mother. Ladies, thank you so much for being here today.
Tara. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Modern Mom Probs. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive in today's problem with me, your host, Tara Clark. Join me next time when I'll be interviewing another great guest and tackling another modern mom problem. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and a rating. As always, you could head over to Modern Mom Probs on Instagram and give me a follow, or check out my book, Modern Mom Probs, A Survival Guide for 21st Century Mothers, available online wherever books are sold. Well, that's it for today. See you next time, folks.